Oh, let's get to Cassie Costello.
In support of the Responding to Abuse and Care Legislation Amendment Bill. I would first like to acknowledge those in the gallery and those that met with us this morning on this important day of recognising our past, recognising our history, but hopefully acknowledging it does not define our future. I would also like to acknowledge the Minister who is leading this programme of work, Minister Erica Stanford, and her commitment and her diligence and her empathy and her warmth in navigating this difficult process. We spoke earlier today in this House of love, and I can assure you that this programme of work is being delivered with love. The recognition of the individual stories, the recognition of the harm, has created a pathway for us to deliver a future. It is important for us to consider at this time that this process, the environment that we stand every day, will be foreign to many in this House, Mr Speaker, who are viewing it. It seems a cold process, it seems a very sterile process, and I hope that you can recognise that it's this process that will ensure that our decisions are made diligently, that our decisions are made with careful consideration, that there are no unintended consequences, that we know that you are heard and that our responses lead us down a pathway to a better future. The report provided 138 recommendations and 500 findings. Each of those recommendations and each of those findings, Mr Speaker, were reflective of a story told to the Commission. Each of you, as survivors, each of the survivors, have a story that needs to be heard. And it is important that we note that and we allow each story to be told, and we don't make decisions on a collective basis based upon the loudest voice or the most vocal spokesperson. But those that have still remained too scared to speak will be assured that their voice will be heard as we work through this process. As Minister Stanford said in her opening address, that this is the beginning of our response, and it truly is. It is the beginning of a pathway. And what we wanted to do in this House was recognise those important key considerations that we could show that we are taking action, we are moving forward, but it is not our destination. We have so much work that we want to reflect. And as we talk about the nation we are, and we talk about the processes and how this House comes to its decisions, I think it's important to recognise that across this House are really considered, important, balanced conversations that go to informing the programme of work. We are coming at this with love. We are coming at this recognising that we have a history that we hang our heads in shame about, but we cannot in this ignore those that were carers that did deliver love, that did offer a pathway out of hell, that we consider those people that did provide that support and that nourishment and that whānau that was so desperately needed. And I want to also recognise those survivors who, in the conversations that I've had the privilege to be part of, have come forward with immense strength, that are now delivering solutions, that are supporting communities. A young woman that I sat with in breakfast yesterday who is opening yet another care home to deliver those interventions. That is our pathway forward. It is not just from the government. It is how do we harness the strengths that you have demonstrated? How do we ensure that you have the pathway, that we provide the pathway to build on that strength? This piece of legislation is small in process and small in size, but massive in terms of what it represents. It represents that we are listening. We are trying to take the actions that will have impact, and we are trying to find the pathway forward on a balanced and process-driven way so that we don't miss anything. We have a history where I think we have acted at pace. We have implemented things that perhaps we didn't think about the unintended consequences. We didn't consider the communities. We stood in this House thinking we knew better. I think that is the lesson that we learn by presenting this bill today, to take the small steps to ensure we continue to keep moving forward, to protect our young people that are going into youth justice secure facilities, protecting all the young people, those that are weaker and gentler from those that are stronger and more aggressive, that we don't allow contraband and weapons to enter those facilities, that we make some clarity around the authority and responsibility, that we empower those that have the ability to do the right thing and protect them. We want to ensure that anyone who works with the care of young people is clearly, strongly and verifiably vetted so that we know they are safe to be in the positions they're in. That we recognise what vulnerability really means, and that we ensure as we move forward that that vulnerability is clearly defined so there can be no ambiguity in the future. And finally, what is most important as a former detective is knowing that the records will be clear, they will be accessible, that we make that process verified, because knowing that your story is written down and that you have access to it is critically important. That's what makes you no longer invisible. That's what protects your story and your truth. And those are the things that we know we can fix today. I want to really close, Mr Speaker, by talking again about our past and our history. We are a complex nation, but we are a unique nation. We have formed a nation based upon a history where a range of peoples have come together. I whakapapa to both Ngāti Wai, Ngāpuhi and Ngāti Hau, but I also whakapapa to Ireland and to England. I want to ensure that that story we tell as we go forward does not create further division amongst our families, but it brings us together, just as has been said in this House today, with love, with respect, and with the empowerment that comes from knowing that our stories are heard and respected, that we will learn from what we've done wrong, we will look forward to the future. I commend this bill to the House, and I acknowledge the Minister Stanford for her diligent work in this programme of work. Thank you.
I don't know where to start on that one. It's interesting to see Casey Costello's past career coming up as a detective being brought up.
I didn't know that. Was she a police detective?
Yep.
Yeah, she's had a very colourful work history, but was a detective in Pukekohe.
Well, let me tell you then, that's very disappointing. So I referred before to evasive, obfuscating question time answers. So last Thursday when I was in the House, she was subjected to quite a protracted exchange with Barbara, no, was it Barb?
Aisha Verrill.
Yeah, it was Aisha, yeah. And heavens above, the ducking and weaving, and then she actually ended up getting caught out telling a porky. Aisha actually read back the Hansard record, and all we got was a cheesy grin. That's very, very disappointing, but hardly surprising to hear that background.
Well, she's also part of Hobson's Pledge as well.
Yes.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
And Atlas, by the way.
Oh, she Atlas as well.
Isn't she one of the co-founders of Hobson's Pledge?
Yes, she is.
Along with
And
Don
she's
Brash?
high up on her committee. Yeah.
What I find amazing is that none of these government ministers or MPs are willing to acknowledge that the history of punitive prohibition of substances is what creates the pipeline into state care.
Yeah. The demonisation.
Ideology, populist, short-term thinking. Keep coming back to that systems frame, whānau.
Yeah.
And then they talk about further prohibitions within state care, like that's going to help. You know, further punishments for people who are self-medicating for the problems that they've been brought about from being in state care.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing the absolute bare minimum as well. It's like the commission made like 95 recommendations and then added a whole bunch on top of that. She said that there was over 100 altogether. And it's just like, oh, you look through the ones that they want to implement, a tiny little fraction.
It's so frustrating.